Good evening. We'll call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Here.
Present. And for the record, Attorney Murphy is family. He's not here for a family reason. So we'll now please rise for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We'll now move to Section 2 of the agenda, approve the minutes of the September 7, 2017 regular school committee meeting. Any questions or comments? Motion by Mr. Roland. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Gresham. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Section 3 of the agenda is items requiring a vote of the school committee. A is to approve a City of Springfield High School Certificate of Attainment for Anthony Hansen. Superintendent Ward, please.
There's an informational circular in your package. We recommended for a certificate of attainment here. It's completed all the requirements as verified by Dr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Recommend approval.
Thank you, Superintendent Warwick. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, there's a motion on the floor by Mr. Roland. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Hurst. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Yes, more than sufficient votes. This matter passes. Congratulations, Mr. Hansen. B is to approve the release of Level 3 turnaround grant funds awarded to the Springfield Public Schools in the amount of $300,000 from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Superintendent Warwick, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Really excited about this development. Indian Orchard School, for the first time, they allowed schools across the Commonwealth to apply, and SIG grant funding is a competitive endeavor. Indian Orchard submitted for an available $275,000. The grant submission was so robust, they actually funded it at $300,000 for a turnaround school. So that gives the opportunity for the staff, the principal, and the team to actually work together and do things while the school's in level 3, preemptive to go into level 4, and actually having some SIG grant funding to do it. So great job by our support office, Lydia Martinez and her team, and the team at Indian Orchard School, and Kim Wells, the chief schools officer, on this grant to get more than the amount you're applying for in a competitive grant. Really speaks to the robust nature of the turnaround work going at Indian Orchard School. It's been through our Budget and Finance subcommittee. I turn it over to Chris if he wants to comment on it.
Collins. Thank you, Superintendent.
We've got full approval, and we're very happy that the state is finally giving money to level 3 schools rather than make them and get named a level 4 when you can prevent that from happening. So this grant we're very excited to receive this one.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, there's a motion on the floor.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Gresham. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Hurst. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes, more than sufficient vote. This matter passes. Thank you very much. C is to approve the release of funds awarded to the Springfield Public Schools in the amount of $35,000 from the Henry P. Kendall Foundation. Superintendent Warwick, please.
Thank you, Mayor. We've got several items in here that are all grants coming in to support our work that's based on the breakfast in the classroom and creating the nutritional center that we're going to be working on up at Caldwell Drive. So there's, I think, 2 or 3 of them on here, but this is a $35,000 grant to assist in that endeavor for the Culinary and Nutrition Center. I'm recommending approval, and it's been through Budget and Finance Subcommittee. I didn't know if you wanted to speak to it, Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Superintendent.
Just to, as the superintendent said, the next 3 are all for that program, and we're happy to receive them, and they got full recommendation from the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, there's a motion on the floor.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Hurst. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Roland. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes, more than sufficient vote. This matter passes. Thank you. D is to approve the release of funds awarded to the Springfield Public Schools in the amount of $50,000 from the Clareman Family Foundation. Superintendent Warwick?
And this is for our breakfast program in the classroom. Again, it's getting wide recognition across the state and, quite honestly, even the country. It's really a testament to Tim Gray, Sodexo, Pat Roach, and all the work we're doing to offer kids this quality program at every school so they get a good start every day. And the last meeting I passed out from the nursing department, how many less kids went home sick because they were hungry and everything else since we started this program. So it's really beginning to yield fruit. It's very exciting. And these grants are a recognition that we're going in the right direction here. So it's been through our subcommittee again on budget and finance. Didn't know if Mr. Collins wanted to add anything.
Same comments.
And again, not only the visits to the nurse's office, attendance has also increased, and in turn the schoolwork and scores have also increased also. So it's been and we are being looked upon nationally on it. So I commend everybody involved from the administration. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, there's a motion on the floor.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Orlando, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Hurst. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes, more than sufficient votes, matter passes. Thank you very much. E is to approve the release of funds awarded to the Springfield Public Schools in the amount of $20,000. This is from the Stanley Beveridge Family Foundation. Superintendent Warwick?
Yeah, this is on having money for this school's student employment office. I think it speaks to what Mr. Flute was talking about earlier, looking in some of our other schools to see what we can do to create partnerships and everything. Lydia led this effort on the grant process with Pat Roach. So it's trying to move out and create some programs in traditional schools that would get kids working in the community, get mentorships and everything like that. Again, been through budget and finance. Lydia's here to speak to it if anyone has any questions. Didn't know if Mr. Collins wanted to make a comment from the subcommittee.
This was the only one of the ones that we had a bunch in front of us, as you can see at the meeting, that we figured was associated with our food program because of the name,
Foundation.
but wasn't. But it got a full recommendation.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Ms.
Would
Gresham.
this be during the school year that they would be, would it be during the school year that they will employ the students? How is it going to work?
Assistant Superintendent Lydia Martinez, please, could you just clarify that for Ms. Gresham?
Thank you.
Yes, this is to ensure that the majority of our students have internship and all types of workforce development initiatives during the school year. It'll also go in through the summer, so we're going to continue to work with many of our community partners to really give our students career readiness. So we have more to come. We're going to have a whole presentation for you.
Okay, all right, good,
But
thank you.
we've really been aggressive with the grants because the state is talking about this as a way to supplement the Chapter 74 programs like at a Putnam Voc, which are very popular, but as of yet, they haven't really funded it. So Lydia and her team and our grant office have been out there in front of it trying to get this going in the city of Springfield. And hopefully down the road, the state knows it's a good idea. They'll want to start providing some Chapter 70 funds to help us with it.
Very good, thank you.
Ms. Gresham? All set?
All set. Thank you.
Assistant Superintendent Martinez, thank you very much. And probably the Superintendent Warwick will go into in his report, but we're at Putnam today, Norm's alma mater, and another private enterprise, good corporate citizen, Sprint, stepped up on our initiatives that we're doing with our computerization, and with Paul Foster, but also to step up to get them the interconnected. Because what good is it to have the computer if you're not interconnected, which all goes toward the workforce development for college and or workforce. So with that, it's been clarified. So is there a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Collins, second by Mr. Olan. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes, more than sufficient votes, passes. Thank you very much. F is to approve the release of the Community Mitigation Workforce Development Funds awarded to the Springfield Public Schools in the amount of $171,833.03, and this is coming from our Mass Gaming Commission that we put in for Superintendent Warwick.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, Assistant Superintendent Martinez led these efforts, but put in this grant to help with the effort of our adult ed division to get people ready to get trained and work in the workforce. It's been through our subcommittee, and again, the efforts that are going on to help with those endeavors that Mr. Fluid addressed earlier. So I didn't.
This was a grant, Mayor, that we thought we were going to be put into a competitive position with our neighbor Stick, and we always want to work with them, not be competitive, and thank God that the Gaming Commission saw that wisdom and they funded both of us and just said coordinate your efforts. And Lydia did a great job on this, and they just said, okay, you guys, we'll give you both money, coordinate your efforts so you're not duplicating effort. What a great solution, the Gaming Commission. Of course, they are the Gaming Commission. They probably got a few extra bucks around.
We'll keep tapping them, Chris, don't worry about it, for the good of the Springfield area. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, is motion on the floor. Motion by Mr. Rolland, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Gresham. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, more than sufficient votes, this matter passes. Thank you very much. G is to approve the release of funds awarded to the Springfield Public Schools in the amount of $50,000 from the Mass Mutual Foundation. Superintendent Warwick?
Yeah, this is, again, was led by Assistant Superintendent Martinez, and this is, again, for the student employment program to try to get funds to get the program going, like I say, prior to the state really financially supporting it, so it'll give us some money. Won this grant from Mass Mutual based on its merit. I recommend approval, and I ask Mr. Collins to speak to it again because it came through a subcommittee.
Yeah, Mass Mutual has always been a good corporate citizen for us, and
Sure have.
And it's not the first time that they will have led DESE by saying you ought to support these kinds of things and put their money where their mouth is. And hopefully, as in the past, DESE will come around to their way of thinking and start to fund these programs themselves. But nice job, Lydia, going after this and getting Mass Mutual to once again lead the way.
Any other questions or comments? And again, Mass Mutual's been an outstanding corporate citizen to the city of Springfield for 166 years. We can always count on them, and we appreciate their continued belief and investment in our city of Springfield. And Assistant Superintendent Martinez, thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, motion on the floor. Motion by Mr. Ron, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Gresham. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, more than sufficient vote, this matter passes. Okay, we will now move to Section 4, informational discussion items. This is A, computer take-home update. Superintendent Warwick.
Thank you, Mayor. We've been working a lot with our one-to-one initiative in the school system, and I'm proud to say we're the first urban school system in the Commonwealth that has taken this on. And having the computers in the schools from grades 3 to 12, one-to-one, has been a great accomplishment, and I so appreciate the school committee's support with that financially, in spite of a tough budget, doing the right thing for our kids in this endeavor. And we're 2-to-1 at the K-2 level, so we've really made great strides on this. We've been looking at expanding student learning time, and one way to do that is allowing them to take the laptops home. And you authorized us to try it in some pilot schools last year, and it really worked well. The principals, teachers were excited, and the results were very, very positive. So I've asked Paul to make a presentation to us tonight on how that went and talk about where we go from here. But the results were just fabulous. Really good feedback from principals, teachers, the parents, and students, and very little problems occurred at all with this. So it's been a really successful start. So Paul, if you can take it from there.
Thank you, Superintendent Ward. Thank you, Mr. Foster, AKA Stats.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Here, Paul.
As the superintendent said, this has been an exciting project, as you all know, and thanks. I'll add my thanks for the support. I think this has been really good for the kids, and you all as a school committee have clearly led in the state on this. Excuse me. Briefly, I'll give a quick update on where we are with We Learn generally, which, as you all know, is the label we've given, or the brand that we've applied to our digital learning initiative. And it's been very effective, and we've made a lot of strides, again, thanks to your leadership. On the professional development front, this starts with teachers. This starts with teachers thinking about how they can use technology in their classroom. And both of the last 2 August PDs have been very focused on the infusion of technology in the classroom, and in particular on supporting teachers to think differently about how they can use technology to really empower students to take ownership of their learning, empower students to create their own unique pieces of work that demonstrate their learning. We've also taken advantage of a lot of opportunities for teachers to teach each other through a variety of conferences where teachers are running workshops and just talking to other teachers about what they're doing in their classroom, how they're using a technology. We really try to encourage a culture of innovation and experimentation where teachers are trying new things in their classroom and then they're sharing what they tried with their colleagues. As you all know, we achieved a ratio of 1-to-1 in grades 3 to 12 with laptop computers last school year, and we're a ratio of 2-to-1 in K-2. We now have online classrooms for every class in the district through a software product called Brightspace. And I won't read the rest to you, but there's a number of things that are underway throughout the district. And the mayor referenced the event this morning where Sprint, as a corporate partner, came in and is providing mobile hotspots to our high school students who don't have internet access at home. And that's just another kind of piece of the puzzle. And that was an exciting opportunity. I'm just going to borrow something from one of the teachers who spoke this morning at the event at Putnam. He said that part of this digital learning work is we want our students to be in the driver's seat with technology, not the passenger seat. My version of that would be that we want to prepare our students to be the ones who build the next iPhone, not just the ones who buy the next iPhone.
William Struthers, yeah.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
Yep. And so moving on to the take-home piece, we did, as the superintendent said, a small pilot last year, and that was based on the take-home policy that you all adopted. And as you'll recall, the key points of the policy, that take-home was open to students in grade 3 to 12. Parents and students had to sign agreements about kind of what they were going to do and what responsibilities they were taking on in terms of taking care of the technology. And families do have to pay a $20 a year technology take-home fee, which we have then taken and are purchasing insurance against theft and loss. So last year, again, it was a small pilot. There were 3 elementary schools that sent laptops home, and it was just in the spring last year. So it was in the 3rd and 4th marking period of last school year. Boland, Glenwood, and Walsh. For last year, because it was a half-year program, the families just paid the $10, and we were able to actually purchase half-year insurance, so we were able to make that work. And I want to show this right off the bat, because I think when people in the public hear that we're providing our students with laptops, when we're sending them home with our students, inevitably one of the first questions you hear is, well, aren't you going to lose them? And our students are responsible, and our students are rising to the challenge. And what you see is, and again, it was a small pilot, but out of 109 laptops taken home, we didn't lose 1. 2 were damaged, and it was damage that was covered under warranty. And let's be honest, laptops are going to be damaged during school as well as they would be at home. But you're talking about a damage rate of 1.8% and a loss rate of 0. But I think that my favorite data is to hear from our students. And so we did do a survey, and again, small pilot, so only 30 students responded to the survey. So keep that in mind. I don't think the first number's a surprise. 97% of our students like taking a laptop home. I'm not sure what happened with that one student. You see 57% would like more of their homework to be on the computer. 17% weren't sure one way or the other. And I'm fairly sure that the other set of students just didn't want to do homework. But 73%, and this is where it really starts to matter, 73% reported that taking a school computer home helped them learn more, which is exactly, the superintendent spoke about the extended learning time. I think when we met last year, one of the numbers we talked about is that the cost of the investment in sending laptops home with our students is about the same as making the school day 20 minutes longer. When you think about, you're getting much more than 20 minutes out of this work.
And just to add, the insurance policy that we purchased through your approval protected us in any of these losses anyway, because we purchased the insurance, so there was no loss on it, so it was a win-win.
We did ask students what they did on the computers. Interestingly, the number one response, 23% of the students said they did online math games on a website called Prodigy. That's a website they use in school. Students like it so much, they're taking our laptops home and they're continuing to practice math when they get home. 10% said they were doing Word or PowerPoint. Again, that idea of students creating their own work that demonstrates mastery. YouTube, 7%, not too super surprising. And then in their own words, my favorite thing to do at home on the computer is do my homework. That's pretty good. Although I do like the second half. If I have time, I might play 1 or 2 games. But if you look at the second quote, My favorite thing to do is PowerPoints and writing. I also like to read. When we're talking about literacy, we're talking about reading, we're talking about writing, and this is students talking, saying, when I take my computer home, I want to read and I want to write. We also talk to our teachers. Again, small. So 8 of our teachers who were part of this pilot responded. We asked them on a scale of 1 to 10, rate the degree to which students taking a laptop home had a positive impact. 10 was the highest. And you can see those average ratings. I won't read them to you. But on the one about student engagement or interest in their learning, what that 9.9 means is of the 8 teachers, 7 of them gave it a 10 and 1 of them gave it a 9. Now, on the teacher survey, also 50% of teachers reported assigning homework that requires the use of a computer at least once a week. Now, that's a number we'd love to see go up. And part of the challenge, and I talked about the PD that we're trying to do to support our teachers, this is a shift for our teachers, right? They're not sending home a worksheet or they're not sending home a packet. This is sending home different kinds of assignments, and our teachers are still kind of evolving and developing to get to that point, and you see that in the numbers. But 100% of teachers reported their students' reaction as positive. And then a few of teachers' own words. And again, I'm not going to read all these to you, but these are a lot. Students were practicing math skills, typing, writing assignments, creating PowerPoint presentations. Keep in mind, by the way, that our pilot last year was only elementary school. These are 3rd through 5th graders creating PowerPoints, typing assignments, working on their math skills. The second quote, students were also responsible with computers since they knew they had to show us they could do the right thing. And we're giving our students an opportunity to demonstrate their responsibility. I also like the third quote. If we had more time, and again, these were relatively short pilots that started in the second half of the year, I think homework completion, and sorry for my typo, although homework competition is also good, homework completion would have increased. And that's the voice of one of our teachers. And there were challenges. I don't want to be, there were things that we're still working on. Right? The only negative was that they didn't always charge the laptop at night. It's something we knew we'd have. Our students have to get used to this. They have to get used to, when I get home at night, I got to take that laptop, I got to plug it in so it's ready for the next school day. We talked about the Sprint program already. Some of our students don't have internet at home. We even, we surveyed about 2,500 of our high schoolers as we got ready for the Sprint program. And certainly there's a good percentage that don't have internet, but one of the things we found, actually 35% of our students in our high schools don't have a computer at home. And so when you think about the laptop initiative and thinking about taking these laptops home, they're not taking them home in many cases, at least for nearly 4 out of 10 of our kids. They're not taking them home to a house that has a computer. Yeah.
Ms. Search, yes.
Mr. Foster, on the last bullet point when it talks about not all students in my class were eligible, why might they not have been eligible? Because they didn't have internet or because...
Yeah, it's a great question.
The reason.
It was a short-term pilot, and so one of the things we know we need to do is we need to get the message out more. But in this particular case, it was only 109 students across those 3 schools, and so those are the families that signed on to try the pilot. They paid the $10, and so hopefully our goal is to get much broader participation so that doesn't happen, because we don't want our teachers in the position of having to give one set of homework to students who aren't taking a laptop home and a different set of homework to students who are. But in this particular case, it could have been the fee for some families, but I think largely just, certain classrooms in those schools were more able to get the information home to families and get families to sign up. So I think as we go into the piloting or the expansion of the pilot this year, we want to make sure we get as much kind of breadth as possible so that situation isn't happening. So it wasn't, this was the teacher's words. There was no eligibility in terms of, we didn't deny anyone. So anyone who signed up in those 3 schools, anybody who paid the fee was able to take one home. Does that answer?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Search.
And the last quote, And again, that's still a learning curve for us on the homework front. I think even for our teachers in those pilot schools, they're thinking about how do they change their practice, how do they think differently about homework. So for 17-18, we want to expand the pilot. And I think you'll recall from last year when we did this pilot, the way we identified schools is we went to the schools and we went to the principals and we said, is this something you want to be part of? And basically, any school that said they raised their hand and said, yeah, we're ready and we want to be part of it, they were part of the pilot last year. We did the same process over the summer. And so these 10 schools are schools that have raised their hand. They've basically said, we believe we as an administration and we as a faculty are ready to try this and ready to take this on. And they're schools that are thinking about those questions of how does homework look different? How does classroom instruction look different? And I want to acknowledge our schools and our principals for their creativity. I mean, I sat in a meeting with one of our pilot schools from last year with their instructional leadership team, and they were thinking hard about these issues. They were thinking hard about the issue of internet at home. And so one teacher decided that change that she was going to make to her practice is that she was going to assign homework on Monday for the week, and it would be due on Friday. And what her thinking was is she knew some of her kids didn't have internet at home. And so her thought was, you know what, if I give them multiple days to do the homework, maybe one of those days during the week, they're going to be able to make it to the library or make it to somewhere else in the community that has public internet. And so rather than saying, okay, this is Monday's homework, this is Tuesday's homework. And I just give that as an example of the kind of innovation that's coming not from my department, not from central office, but coming from principals and from teachers who, like I said, with this culture of innovation, are trying things and are trying to figure out what works for them and for their students. And with that, I'd be happy to take questions.
Ms. Hirsch?
Go ahead.
I'll get Barb. I'll let Barb go. You
Yeah.
Ms. Gresham, sorry,
Thank you,
then I'll go to Ms.
Mr.
Hirsch.
Mayor. So, Mr. Foster, if they're not participating in the pilot program, they still have computers in the classroom
Yes.
that they're working with, right?
We're one-to-one district-wide. Yep.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gresham. Ms. Hirsch?
So as we begin to think about scaling up or scaling out so that there are additional schools that are going to have access, I know that we talked about this when it came before us in subcommittee. What are we going to do about the families who might not have the fee, especially if they have multiple children?
Yeah, and I can say that I know when we talked last year and we adopted the initial policy for take-home, we did that flat $20 fee. And I know we did talk about the fact that we would revisit at a later point. And so in some ways I'll defer to the committee in terms of when and how you want to have that conversation. What I can say is that the 20, we set that rate, as you all know, because that was what it cost us to buy essentially an insurance policy on the device that covers it against theft and loss. But I know we did have some conversation last year about should we be considering either a waiver process or even a process for families with multiple children. And so that may be something that we could certainly bring back to a subcommittee meeting.
But we talked about it last year, so we'd be looking to get input on that. And let's see how it goes now in these schools where it's 20 for the whole year, and then we can revisit it.
Mr. Roland? I'm sorry, Ms. Hirsch still has the floor.
I was going to ask, do we have any data on how many students were unable to pay the $10 fee at the schools that it was piloted in?
Only anecdotal. So I did speak with the principals to try to get a sense of how many folks were coming back and saying very little was the feedback I got. That they weren't not getting a lot of pushback on the fee, but again, it was small in scale. So I'm not sure that's enough data to generalize from, but that did not seem to be an obstacle. Actually, to be honest, one of the things they heard more often was from families who were saying, "I have a computer at home, so there's no point in me paying the $20." And in that case, that's actually completely fine. We've gotten to the place where all of our software and our files are available whether students are at school or at home. So certainly families who are giving us that feedback that they don't want to bring one of ours home, that's actually been fine. But we've heard that more than the issue of cost. But we have heard it on occasion. I think part of what we've been tried to message, and as carefully as we can, because we know some of our families are struggling, but it's $20 that is essentially allowing your child to have a laptop for the entire year at school and at home. And also, we're messaging the insurance part of that. So families understand that, if something does happen, there's an accident or anything, we're not coming to them with a bill for the price of a laptop. So we've tried to convey that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
But it's something I think we need to keep looking at and get more information on.
Mr. Roland?
So I heard Sprint hotspot. That's important because we're rolling it out to more schools. What was the commitment? What was the dialogue with them? Was there a conversation where they're looking at specific areas where the schools are expanding their schools? And how will that look like?
The Sprint program in particular. So we had the chance to apply. It was essentially, in some respects, a grant program. So we had the opportunity to apply. It's called the Sprint 1 Million program. And so Sprint, as a corporation, has made a commitment to help bridge the digital divide. And so what they've done is committed, I think, over the next 5 years to put an internet-connected device in the hands of 1 million high school students. So we had the opportunity to apply for that. So the criteria for us, for this year, we were granted 730 devices. And then we're part of this for the next 5 years, so we'll get another complement of devices each year. So the criteria, it's only for high school. So we're still working on what are our options for our elementary and middle school students. So it's only high school, and it's only students who do not have internet at home. And although, to Sprint's credit, they take students' word for it. So essentially, we did a survey of our high school students and said, do you have internet at home? And we asked some other questions to kind of get at, is it high speed? Is it not high speed? And so those are the criteria. They have to be high school and they have to not have internet at home. But beyond that, we have discretion over how we allocate those.
I was just wondering, and I'm glad that the program is working because I love this program. I remember when we talked about it last year, and I was so excited to see it come on, start. And the numbers went up. Thank you. To show the kids are actually, I'm excited to expand it. Good job.
Mr. Collins.
Norm asked exactly what I was going to ask, but the other part that we're talking about, parents affording it, we should think about giving a family that may have multiple children or whatever, a way to earn it. Volunteer at a math night. Maybe we can use this as a way to get parents more involved in school and find a way, the more parents who get involved in our schools, the better off we are. So maybe we should think about that when we go back to committee.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. I'd have to say that when this presentation came about last year, Ms. Hurst brought up and others about if there's extenuating waiting circumstances, we would look at it. But the report you showed from other districts, that the few that do this, there was a sense of buy-in, skin in the game, responsibility, that you put some monetary assets up for this. And you would take it more seriously. And I know it was a small pilot, but you had 109 out there. 109 came back, contrary to what the naysayers say at times. So maybe with indulgence of the superintendent and our subcommittee, we're always willing to help out, but that whether it's 10 or 20 or staggered approach for family members, you remember, hey, I paid for this. And it's also, if you had to pay for a regular laptop, you're talking about the hundreds of thousands or $1,000 for it. But I'm sure if there's extenuating circumstances, we could work something out. Ms. Hurst?
I was going to also say, is there a time frame in which we give parents to prepare to pay that $10 fee? So, like, let's say it goes out in the middle of October because they're going to get laptops in November or December. So do they have a significant amount of time to be able to save to get to pay for the fee?
Yeah, it's a great question. Right now, we haven't actually, schools are in that process now, the 10 schools that you see up there. So I don't know, none of the laptops have actually gone home yet. I mean, I think long term, we'd love to get to the place where laptops go home the first day of school. But I think we're still working our way up to that. So there's already a little bit of time built in. But I mean, one of the things we can work on is making sure we're doing a lot of that messaging at the end of the prior school year and letting people know, hey, this is something you want to anticipate for the coming year. Partly because we've been a pilot and we've been working with schools to identify which schools want to participate. We weren't able to get out in front of it quite as much last spring to say, hey, parents, you might want to be saving for this over the summer. But I think in the future we'll be able to do that.
I think what we could add to it is as soon as a family did come up with the money, then we could send the laptop home. Yeah. So we could give them as much time as they needed to that way. And just, again, try it and kind of learn and kind of get the sweet spot and what's the best way to go. And we'll be bringing that piece back to subcommittee to look at it and get more data so we can make a good decision on that. But I was very encouraged by what I saw so far. And again, I think the naysayers who said we were going to lose all the computers and it wasn't going to work, I think we proved them wrong. Yeah, so really excited about that.
Thank you, Superintendent. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Mr. Foster, Stats, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll now move to Section 5, Reports of Standing Committees. A is Student Relation Parent Concerns.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Gresham. B is Building and Maintenance Committee.
No report, Mr.
Thank you,
Mayor.
Mr. Collins. C is Legislative and Contracts Committee. I believe that was well as that. Okay. D is Curriculum and Programs Committee.
No report at this time,
Thank
Your
you,
Honor.
Ms. Hurst. E is Budget and Finance. Mr. Collins, I don't know if there's anything else
We
you want to
voted,
add.
basically the agenda was us, so we voted on it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Collins. F is Vocational Education Committee.
I know there was
Scroll
something
on.
at 2 o'clock today, Mayor, and we couldn't make it, but I'm glad to see that there's some improvement at Putnam. So.
Thank you very much, Mr. O'Lyon. Any questions or comments on Mr. O'Lyon's report? Okay, hearing none. The G is Technology Committee.
That's
That's,
Attorney Murphy.
Attorney Murphy, who was a family event. H is High School Safety Committee.
No reports, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Gresham. We'll now move to the report of the superintendent. Superintendent Warwick, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to call Attorney Shea up from our HR department. We have a packet in there on our hiring process that occurred this year and some really encouraging developments. And I really think when I look at this, I think of the committee's support with passing the last 2 teacher contracts and how that has helped us in the recruitment and retention of teachers. And at one time, we were turning over more teachers than we could hire qualified teachers. And when you see the data that Melissa's about to present, and again, there's a nice handout in your package on it, I think you'll be very encouraged. But I think the other piece of it, I think, is the climate piece. The climate has been very positively reflected. We were recognized by Forbes magazine as the best mid-sized employer, and you can see the turnover's way down, and the data really supports that improving the climate and having a responsible pay structure for our teachers, which I really, again, thank the school committee for their support with, is making a big difference in recruitment and retention, and so important. And I just wanted Melissa to have a chance
And by
to
the
present
way,
it.
Steve Forbes was just here last week to speak
That's
at
right.
the public forum.
Right.
I had to introduce him, yeah. Good guy. Thank you, Superintendent Warwick. Attorney Melissa Shea.
Sure. So there's you should have 3 pages in front of you. The first page is teacher vacancies at the start of the school year as of the end of August. We've been tracking the data for the past, this shows the data for the past 4 years as of the first day of school, for the start of school, and the number of actual vacancies. So bearing in mind that with regard to our Unit A, we have approximately 2,500 positions, give or take 100, or so, depending on the year. So that's 2,500 positions, and there are people that retire or resign or what have you. So filling those vacancies has been much more challenging in the past. If you notice, going back 4 years, as of the first day of school, there were 111 vacancies, and it's as of this year, the start of the school was 17.5, and keeping in mind 17.5, 4 of those were actually librarians, so the number of actual teacher vacancies was even less as of the first day of school. So from 111 to 17.5 over the past 4 years. The second page, I believe the second page that you have in front of you is it the resignation retirement?
Yes, it is. Yep.
So the resignation retirement activity over the past 5 years. So if you note from the chart, going back to the start of the 2013 school year, the number of resignations was 275. It's decreased each year subsequent to that, down to our lowest number ever for the start of this school year to 189. So from 275 down to 189. Retirements, of course, people retire. Yeah. They served district for a number of years. If you notice the number of retirements, it's been steady around the, relatively the same. So this year it was 76, last year it was 75, the year before that 82. So that's for retirements. The last page that you have is the actual hiring activity for the past 5 years. And these are the numbers that you see, those reflect the actual number of new teacher hires. So for this year, as of the end of August, the number of new teacher hires decreased from the 2012-2013 school year, which was 445, down to this year, 206. Again, those are brand new hires to teaching positions in Springfield Public Schools. So I don't think you can attribute it to one thing in particular. I'm going to quote to change a quote a little bit. I think it takes a city, and it's a number of different factors. So I think it goes to our great principal leaders who understand the value of starting the hiring process early to obtain the most effective teachers for their buildings. As Superintendent Warwick indicated, we have a more competitive contract and our collaboration with our teachers is key, because it goes towards, we believe, apart from the monetary, but it goes towards the culture and climate. And again, as reflected in the survey with the Forbes, we have great partnerships throughout the city and locally, from our partnerships with colleges that help us invest in teachers, such as we have, I'm just going to name a few. I'm not going to name them all, and I don't want to leave anyone out, so I'm just going to name a few, just highlight a few. So we have, as we have our long-standing partnership with UMass, the 180-day program, which I mentioned in the past, to help our teachers. We have a S-cubed program with Springfield College, which has been going on for a few years. We have our Reach to Teach with Westfield State University. I look at Assistant Superintendent Martinez and Zal Kavan, who are participants in that program, as well as other programs with other local colleges who've been great. And then, of course, we have our partnership with the Empowerment Zone, ZEP, and Empower Schools, which has helped contribute towards our recruitment and retention efforts with regard to the teachers in that zone. And I would be remiss if I did not mention the wonderful, great leaders that we have in Springfield that invest and understand the importance of education. From the Mayor Sarno, who has made it abundantly clear how much education is valued in the students, to our school committee, and of course, I'm quoting you, Mayor, our homegrown dynamic superintendent, and the rest of our administrative staff. And also, we actually have a wonderful relationship with the paraprofessionals who, what the work that they do in this classrooms every day to support the teachers.
Got a shout out, Kathy, got a shout out.
Good question.
Thank you, Attorney Shea. Any questions or comments? Mr. Roland.
So I'm looking at the report between resignation and retirement. It comes up to 265, and we hired 206. What happened there?
Okay, so it depends on the particular, so there, in some instances, perhaps there may have been a change in allocations, so maybe reduced allocations. It could also be with regard to, sometimes we have teachers who were on a waiver, so we would not count those folks as a new hire, right? Because a waiver is only valid for 1 year, and they get a couple of years to make progress to obtain licensure. So we would back those waiver teachers because they wouldn't be counted as actual new hires for the district.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Roland.
But
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Collins, yes.
The, in the first year of the report, which was 12-13, that was an 11% resignation rate, which there happened to have been a report at that time that showed that to be really on the low end. When you think about a corporation with 2,500 people, that was on the low end for a regular corporation, and it was even on the low end, it was on the very low end for educational corporations. And you've now dropped the 11% down to a 7.5%, which flies in the face of the naysayers out there who keep trying to say that it's an uncomfortable place to work, that it's got a bad atmosphere. Over the course of 5 years, you've now reduced the resignation rate well below the national average for educational institutions. So I'm thinking that the average person working in schools really thinks that this is a good place to work because that is well below the national average. And that's accountable much more to the people who work in the buildings every day and support the people than it is to any of us. It shows that this is a really good place to work.
We've made tremendous, I understand it's been said that professional development, we have the best in the Commonwealth for our teachers. We've been very creative with initiatives through Superintendent Warwick and under leadership of Assistant Superintendent Lydia Martinez, whether it's the Teach for America program, which we help with housing, or the Aaron Crewell, the Freedom Writers, that we have those specialized teachers that want to teach in an urban center. And that's important because that reflects to our student body. And we've also worked hard with Attorney Shea and others to diversify, show the diversity in our teaching ranks to our students. So, well noted. Any other questions or comments?
No, I just want to say, looking at it, it tells me that we are retaining our teachers, which is a good thing.
And that's so important, because that was our problem at one time. It wasn't the recruiting. We weren't retaining our teachers, and we were putting a tremendous amount of professional development into providing great training, but then we'd lose them after the first 5 years just as they were really excelling in their craft. And it's been the retention that's been the big difference, and that's what's so important, because it's that quality teacher in front of the kids that makes the biggest difference. And again, I'll say it again, the support with the last 2 contracts, in spite of very difficult budgets, made a big difference as well. But I think the overall climate culture, we do an OHI survey and work on the climate issues in buildings and really work to improve the climate. And I think that Forbes award kind of signified that good work that's going forward, and people they want to stay in what's a more challenging environment, and that's very encouraging, and I appreciate the school committee's help with that.
The Forbes award is substantial, because they just not willy-nilly. They go by certain standards on it, and you have to look at, and it's well over a decade now, during the tenure of the control board, I think we lost half our teachers. And we have given very competitive and fair contract agreements, and I think that's being reflected. And Superintendent Warwick also mentions, I think we're going to be, to the school committee, we're going to be doing something in the near future with all our physical plant school improvements, whether new schools or schools we've rehabbed. We're nearing, I think, the $700 million mark, which is unheard of since our tenure here, and that's getting more from the MSBA than Boston is getting. So as you said, Attorney Shea, it's an accumulation. Don't worry, I'll keep knocking on that door. Of a lot of things coming into place. It's a team concept. So, hey, listen, we've been in the back seat for quite a while, so I don't mind knocking or kicking in doors to keep moving the city forward. So, but I understand your strategy, Chris. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing up Superintendent Warwick. Thank you, Attorney Shea.
Next piece, I just put an article in your packet relative to, we presented down at the State House in September, relative to expanding the opportunity to have an empowerment zone in other school systems in the Commonwealth, should a system want to exercise a creative approach to deal with schools that are having some challenges, as opposed to just receivership or a charter school. So we made that presentation in September. We had Henry Thomas from the Urban League with us, and Senator Lesser sponsored with it. And we had the principal and teachers present from Duggan Middle School, and they were just fabulous on the exciting things going on in their schools. So it's just a way of affording that opportunity to other school districts. And again, across the state, people are looking to that option and talking about it. And I think it's exciting that Springfield was out front with that, and we had the courage to move forward with it and not just let schools go into receivership or let a charter school take over.
Superintendent Ward, if I can mention too that we are looked upon leading the state. I've had the superintendent involved with me on conference calls with Mayor Kim Driscoll out of Salem, and Johnny Mitchell out of New Bedford, and with Representative Peisch and the Senate leadership on it, that pontificating on how this has worked well for us. We have been steadfast in our testimony, all right, that must be done the Springfield model way. If it's done the Springfield model way, which is a three-legged stool of not only the school department, but also flexibility with the business community, but also working with the teachers, and that was key. But we are now being looked upon statewide and even nationally, the successes, which we have many successes in our public school system, and the flexibility to work with the business community and some charter flexibility. And it's worked pretty well, and other mayors and superintendents have reached out to try to bottle this magic, move forward. But myself and Superintendent Warwick and others have stressed that if you do it the way the Springfield model has been done, it will work for you. If not, that's a different story on it. So, thank you, Superintendent Warwick.
Thank you, Mayor. The next one is a school building project list. We had a really active summer relative to school building projects. We have the top listings are all the projects that we funded out of the $1 million that you put aside in our budget, plus the mayor and TJ moved over $2.6 million they had on their side of the budget to help us. And we were really doing a lot of really needed repairs in the schools and making some lifts. And we were over at Duggan and
Unbelievable.
over $100,000 of work this summer was done by the sheriff's crews in our schools. 100,000, and when they redid the seating in the auditorium at Duggan, and now Duggan is 6 to 12, and the auditorium looks spectacular. They saved us $300,000 if we went with a private vendor, what it would have cost to redo.
And $80,000 in the gym. The
And
gym,
they painted the gym for us and helped us with the floor. So we have a new gym, in essence, a new gym, brand new floor. I think the Duggan gym floor was probably the worst in the city historically.
Dead spot
Completely
central.
new floor, all painted. So now we're participating in the varsity sports. It's made a big difference. But as you can see, those kind of things were done throughout the entire city. In addition to over $13 million of MSBA projects for roofs, windows, and doors that were completed over the summer. So we're on the move, over $700 million. But again, getting the sheriff's crews, credit to Pat Sullivan and his team. We get a great bang for our buck any dollar we give to facilities. And our average school is 55 years old. There's been a lot of deferred maintenance over the years, but we've been really moving forward that. But so appreciate the school committee giving us the money to do that. And the mayor actually giving us money from his side of the budget also to assist with that process this summer.
yeah, Pat Sullivan, Pete Garvey, who
Yeah.
does my capital asset management, came from the private sector too. And then our tradesmen and tradeswomen, they do a tremendous job. And then working with Sheriff Kochi, following in the footsteps of Sheriff Ash, really wanted to expand this even more. These, having worked with the drug and alcohol, my old South End community center, I would call them residents, but residents and or inmates, they're also learning, we partner contractually, they're learning workforce development skills. So when they come back out, besides being educated, they're able to provide for themselves, their families, and their community skills. But again, on superintendent indicate, you got to see that auditorium.
It's unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Saved us $300,000 off the tab. And the gym came out outstanding, saved $80,000 in working with the sheriff's groups. That's $380,000 that didn't have to come out of whether school department or my end of the city budget.
And the sheriff's crew also worked at 6 other schools doing projects there for us. It was incredible what they did. And again, I have to commend Sheriff Kochi, and his whole team was out there at Duggan the other day, really taking pride in what they had done. But they've really done great work across the community. And it's showing in the schools, and it makes a big difference. So we so appreciate that. Really exciting about that. And if you get a chance to go see it, go out and see Principal Calvity's, because it's really something special. Great work. To open the year, I've been out to schools a lot. I've made 26 school visits, and I just have to commend the principals. And their teams in the schools are just doing a great job, and we're off to a really good start in the schools. Morale is great, and it's really exciting what's going on in the schools, and we're very, very proud of it. To see the computers in use and the engagement and the performance in the classrooms, really exciting. So I think we're off to a great start to the school year.
I have to say, when we were at Putnam today, and every student there, under Principal George Johnson, every student there, and they had maybe upwards of 60 couple classes there in the library, the computer area, so attentive, so focused. It was people would say, well, they're very, very professional, attentive, paying attention, focused on this. Very noticeable.
And my last item is we are very, very close to also solving the paraprofessional contract.
Yes.
So that's exciting news, and we want to recognize the paras that are here. They do a great job. also appreciate the school committee for recognizing that and for their support in bringing this contract to closure. And I think it's very, very good for the city because they do incredible work day to day in our schools.
Cross the T's, dot the I's, where they are. Okay, Kat. Any questions or comments on Superintendent Warwick's report? Okay, hearing none, is there any unfinished business? Hearing none, is there any new business?
I have a question.
Ms. Gresham, yes.
Since we're talking about school repairs and stuff like that, with MSBA, where we are with the building of Homer?
So that project is in the queue.
It's in the queue.
And very exciting and moving forward. And we're going to be moving on to the next process in the next 6 months. So that project is moving forward very nicely, and we're right on timeline with that. And I think we'll have very good news coming for you as we move forward through that. But everything's been approved to keep that in the queue. And also, I'm glad you asked, as that one is moving forward, we're moving Brightwood, which is also in the queue and moving forward rapidly, and we're beginning the actual work with our architect on that to begin the whole design phase on that. So both projects are in the queue. And as the mayor said earlier, already over $700 million worth of projects, and that's before Brightwood, and hopefully we'll be able to look at some other school in that neighborhood and renovate, do a new one on that at the same time. They're looking at dual projects, so hopefully we'll be able to do something with not only DeBerry but Homer. So all those projects are in the queue and moving forward nicely.
That's because
Thank you for asking that.
they like working with us, that we're willing to be innovative.
Yes.
And so when we talk to them, say, if we're willing to do this, you have to do this for us. So we're pushing for a twofer.
Okay.
Mr. Roland?
The projects are moving forward nicely. We just can't make any formal announcements yet because we have to just take their lead as they look to take a bow for all their efforts here. And you know what? They deserve it. They've been great here.
And we'll back it on. We'll back it on our city side with the money.
Along with my colleague, I agree with Barbara Critcham that the schools that are really old and they definitely need repair. And I'm excited to hear that there is headway. But we still have a couple more schools that I will wish, and now that we're talking about 2 for 1, hopefully they'll look at the other schools and just help us with the other schools that are left over. So, but I agree. It's time.
We haven't forgotten you, Barbara.
No, I believe you.
We'll continue to be aggressive, and I just want to commend the mayor because every time we brought a project forward, there's still 20% that has to come from the city, and he's never said no to any one of our projects. He's moved every one forward.
It's a good
so
investment.
I'd like to thank the mayor and his team for their support.
Good investment.
The education mayor.
Education mayor.
Is there any other questions or comments under new business? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Motion by Mr. Roland, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Hurst. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it. Good evening, and thank you for watching.